Folks are coming up with a plan to be submitted to Congress February 17th. It is the 21st century. What should a 21st century broadband plan look like?
Well, I don't know what it should look like overall. It's probably beyond the scope of a short interview, but I'll tell you one thing I'd like people to take into consideration, and it's that the internet is not just a way of downloading movies or downloading music or downloading child porn, for that matter. The internet is a lifeline to every aspect of our digital lives. So most of us probably couldn't do our jobs without the internet. So cutting off your internet is cutting off your livelihood. Most of us probably couldn't get health care or get the most out of our health care without the internet. Most of us probably, if we've got kids, our kids couldn't do their homework without the internet. Or if we're doing continuing education, we couldn't continue to be educated without the internet. Most civic participation involves the internet, both on the gross scale of like donating money to a candidate or the equivalent of knocking on doors in the 21st century, but also increasingly you can't get a permit to like build a shed out back without the internet. Every aspect of our digital lives moves through the internet, and all the research bears this out. In the UK we have this digital inclusion research that takes and controls two groups of people who are the most disadvantaged. One is has internet and the other one doesn't. The ones that have internet access have lower overheads, they have more disposable income to spend on their kids' education, their kids have a better chance of being socially mobile and so on. So all that stuff is part of what we get out of the internet. But we routinely treat the internet as though it's just a kind of glorified cable television. And so we have things like the three strikes proposal that's now moving through the anti-counterfeiting trade agreement thanks to the U.S. Trade Representative, right? Thanks to America's own trade policy that says, among other things, that if you are accused without conviction of violating copyright 3 times, no judge, no jury, no trial, no evidence, we take away your internet access for a period of time, and we add you to a list of people for whom it's illegal to provide internet access. Right? So this is like so grossly disproportionate. First of all, to the crime, such as it is, but second of all, to notions of justice. I mean, imagine if, as Ed Felton has pointed out, imagine if we said, oh, you've been up to some naughty things with a photocopier. Publishing gets to come over to your house and take away everything printed. Right? You can't read for a year because you've done something wrong with a photocopier. That's the right scale to be thinking about here. One way to understand just what a death penalty this is for participation in the electronic society is to think about the corollary. So imagine if Universal Music stood accused of 3 acts of erroneous copyright accusation. Universal Music has in fact committed more than 3 acts of erroneous copyright accusation. They routinely erroneously accuse people of violating copyright.
They systematically do it. Seriously, right?
Yeah.
The takedown notices that are sent to YouTube, for example, are they know that there's a ton of stuff that's going to be that is not a violation, but it's
can't make it on without breaking eggs, comrade. So what if when Universal did that? What if we accused Universal of 3 bad accusations? We didn't even have to prove it, right? What if we accused them of 3 bad accusations, and for 1 year, Universal wasn't allowed to use the internet? Right? We'd go around with a set of bolt cutters to every Universal office all over the world, and we'd go to their wiring closet, and we'd cut off their DSL lines, their fiber. They could do all their business for a year by fax, provided they weren't using voice over IP lines to transmit those faxes, right? They could use paper memos for a year. Universal would collapse in an instant, right? It would be the end of a, generations-long media empire and the collapse of one of the great, entertainment industry giants, right? Just pop like a soap bubble.
And I would like to find a single hard drive of the purest-hearted individual, the most law-abiding, that does not contain 3 copyright violations or 3 arguable copyright violations.
But let's leave aside that, right? Assume that they're pure as a driven snow. We're not talking about copyright violations. We're talking about accusations of copyright violation. Now, this comes to the next point, which is, what if you are guilty of 3 copyright violations? Is this proportional? And as you say, I don't think it is, because first of all, we all stand in violation of copyright, and I've seen this everywhere I go. One of my routine questions is, who in this room isn't a pirate? Right, so I went and spoke at Disney in Burbank, and I said, who in this room isn't a pirate? Mostly it was engineers, right, but there are a couple of the lawyers there. None of the lawyers put their hands up, right, because they know that they're pirates. A couple of the engineers went, and the lawyers looked over and went, and they put their hands down. Because you have to be, right? It's impossible not to be. a pirate in this day and age. Everyone's violating something. There's a very memorable moment in Kirby Dick's movie, This Film Is Not Yet Rated, in which is a movie about the MPA's rating system, and specifically about the fact that it's done in secret. And Kirby hired a private eye to figure out who all the people were on the secret ratings board, and then submitted the movie to the ratings board. So he gets a call from the head MPAA lobbyist who's in D.C., used to be a congressman. Says, Kirby, I've seen your movie, and I want to talk to you about it. And Kirby says, wait a second, you saw my movie. Are you in L.A.? And he says, no, I'm in D.C. And he said, well, how did you see my movie in D.C.? The copy that I gave the ratings agency is here in L.A. He said, oh, no, they made a copy for me. And Kirby says, what do you mean they made a copy for you? And he says, well, it's okay, though, because I put it in my vault, right? We're all copyists, right? So is it proportional, right? Does it make sense as a punishment to say, we think you committed a civil offense against a media giant, therefore you can't be educated, you can't get health care, you can't vote, you can't participate in civic life. All of these things are now off limits to you. And again, that's not proportional. That's not a good broadband strategy for the nation. So if you're crafting a broadband strategy whose objective it is to see to it that your society successfully transitions to a digital one and becomes one of the winners in the digital era the way it was the winner in the hard goods era, there is no way to do that that starts by saying we will arbitrarily suspend or withdraw network access from people on the basis of accusation or even conviction for copyright infringement. That the idea of enacting the digital death penalty against someone should, if it even exists in law, should be reserved for the most heinous of crimes and not for mere civil offense.
Thank you.
You're welcome.